You're leaving. And Josh is going away at the same time. Your brother-in-law, your wife's brother, going away, same time. Here we go, back to the book. She was in tears, a beautiful mess. Josh was leaving on that same deployment too, but a day later than I was. So he came to see me off and support his sister. I hugged him, and he hugged me back. Chloe was 5 months old and sleeping soundly in her car seat. She never woke up when I kissed her cheek. I unstrapped my daughter, picked her up, and cradled her tightly one last time in my arms. She inhaled deeply, smiled, and carried on sleeping. Then I waved goodbye. Walking away from my loved ones, I had to ask myself if this third deployment felt different from the first two. I had a child to think about now, a family. I knew there would be tense days and firefights ahead, but honestly, I wasn't afraid of dying. I wouldn't be reckless and make myself an easy target, and I didn't want to die. But I knew that if I got hit, then I got hit. If it happened, then it was meant to be. As a soldier, it's not like I talk about my emotions every day. I don't write poetry. I don't watch romantic comedies as a rule. I'm trained to kill people. That's what I do. You've got to be tough in the 82nd. You've got to be as hard as life. You don't want to show weakness ever, particularly with any of your guys around. When you're overseas and out in the middle of nowhere and you have 12 to 20 guys with you, you can't take a seat and say you're done. As a leader, I couldn't throw my helmet down and complain that things weren't fair. You have to make the best of it. You have to keep going. You've got to be as tough as they come. But even so, as I walked away from my wife and child and brother-in-law, the wind struck my eye, and I wiped away the wetness with the back of my sleeve. Harder going away on this deployment?
A little bit, yeah. It didn't feel right. I actually had a conversation with my brother-in-law in his garage with him. And I was like, Josh, it's always a guy that you don't expect to get hit that gets hit. And we started naming out the people from our deployments because we were the same brigade always, just different units. And I said, I just don't feel good about it, I mean, not that I couldn't go where I wasn't going to go, but yeah, it was harder, my wife and everything. I was supposed to leave the next day. I went to work and they're like, hey, look, we need you to take this truck of guys over. Can you leave tonight instead of tomorrow night? And I was like, well, yeah, but I gotta leave work right now. And I gotta go see my wife and my kid. And they're like, yeah, you can go. So I went. But it does, I wouldn't say each deployment's harder. The second one wasn't hard for me to go. I mean, I had to say goodbye, but part of my job. The third one was more, man, I hope I get, to come back home. But you got to push those thoughts, out of your head. You can't, I always tell people, you can't dwell on it. You can't think about it. You can't, worry about what's going to happen. You got to just push through, and whatever happens does happen. But, as long as you're not reckless and careless, you can't affect what your outcome is going to be anyway. So you might as well just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. You, and now you end up on this deployment, the fob or the strong point that you're in so small, it doesn't even have a name. Just like out in the middle of nowhere.
Just a strong point.
And you got there, and what was the environment like there?
I mean, the units that leave always give real great advice. And their commander told our commander, you're not going to really change a lot of stuff here with how the rules of engagements now, because the rules of engagements over different presidencies or different leadership changed. And they said, when we go out, we take shaving cream, we line where we walked, we come back. That's all you're going to do. And of course, when we get there, we're hard charging. We're like, we're going to go here, 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 and here, and here. And the SOPs changed. The battle space all changed. We lived in, like my first deployment, I was on a big fob. Second deployment, I was in a row of little strong points and fobs. And then this one, we were just like, hey, here you go. We're going to helicopter you in. You're dropped off. This is you. 360 around is all bad. And that's just how it was. So we'd go out. The first day we went out, got a huge firefight. And that's when my guys really understood. Like, I was in a lot of schools. Like, I went to college. I went to Jump Master School. I went to the Advanced Leadership course, the ALC course for E6. So when I got back and I got to the weapons squad leader spot, some of the guys didn't know who I was from anybody.
Got it.
My first sergeant knew me. That's why I got the spot. But the other guys were like, why the hell is it? This guy jokes around. He's not mean. He doesn't smoke anybody. He's really, I was polite, I guess, or whatever. Normal everyday guy. I didn't have this chip on my shoulder. after our first firefight, like 2 of the guys that came from a different infantry unit were like, look, I didn't get why you were the squad leader. I didn't get how you got E6 and why you were in charge, but now I do because, when shit hits the fan, I was the guy that needed to be there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this firefight, going to the book here, Sergeant Butler yelled, I'm hit. One of his team leaders, Sergeant Marty Miller, ran over to him and swept his hands along Butler's body to look for blood. Miller ran back to our lieutenant to report he couldn't find any. And you just you sprinted out into this riverbed during this firefight going on, and here you are. I'm still wearing my body armor, but I was essentially weaponless. If I'd kept my rifle, it would have only slowed me down. I ran over to where Sergeant Butler lay. He was probably 50 meters total away. It's my leg, he shouted. I can't put any weight on it. Shut up, I yelled. Get on my back now, let's go. Without waiting for him to answer, I grabbed his right hand with my left, squatted down, and threw him over my shoulders in a fireman's carry. He was probably 185 pounds. I hefted him up and ran back to safety. So there you go. Just, I understand after you perform like that in a firefight, your boy's like, oh yeah, we get it.
Well, so we were on one side of the wadi, the dry riverbed, and my CO was like, we're going to cross this riverbed. And we're like, all right. I mean, that's really, really open, but let's do it. So 1st, 2nd, and headquarters, whatever, went across. Right.
And just I always have to point this stuff out because we have a lot of guys that are in the military that listen to this. Mm-hmm. And so you're just doing a classic cover and move. One element's going to stay back on the high or on one side of the river to cover as the other element's pushing across.
Yeah, and this was our first day in country, so we were just trying to learn the battle space.
Dang.
Because we were thinking about setting up another OP or strong point on the wadi because there was a lot of traffic. And they start to move over there, and they get about 50 meters away, 75 meters, whatever, and then all hell breaks loose. Shots from everywhere. And 3rd squad and 4th squad, weapon squad, which is me, are over on the riverbed, and we start laying in. Everybody ducks down, takes cover, and I'm still standing, and I'm yelling, and one of my guns is shooting to the far left where he should be shooting to the far right. He's the right element. So I walk over, and I kick the team leader, Actually, I think I might have smacked his head real hard. And I said, you need to fix this and fix it now. And I told him where to shoot. I went back over and directed some more traffic, and then some of the other 2 team leaders from the 3rd squad were just firing all their rounds after we already gained some fire superiority. So I yelled at them and said, you 2 know better. You've been here before. Control your rounds, control your fire, and just make sure it's suppressing. And then Butler went down, and we're like, oh, Butler just got hit, and he ended up tearing his MCL, ACL, and meniscus or whatever. I mean, did some pretty bad damage. And my first sergeant's like, 3rd squad, go and get him. And I said, oh, 1st sergeant, don't worry about it, I got it. So I took my weapon off, my M4, and I was like, here, hold this for me. I tossed him my M4 because it was just, it gets in the way. I ran down. Then the A and A were on the riverbank, kind of right behind where they're at. I said, you guys do not shoot. I said, don't you fucking shoot, don't you shoot me in the back. Sorry about that. I know you got to edit that, or maybe you don't. But I was like, don't you guys shoot me. So I ran out and got him, took him back, and I set him down. So I ran out 50, came back, and I took him about 50 to 80 behind the building, set him down. I sat down to get a drink of water. My first sergeant goes, Sergeant Mills, need you back here. I'm like, oh, okay. I ran back. I was like, oh, crap, where's my gun? And Marty had it. So Marty's like, oh, here you go. And I was the last one on the objective. We had to hike back 2 miles with Butler on a stretcher, but I was the last one with the FO on the objective, popping smoke for the Kiowas to come over and cover our movement.
Damn.
The 2 guys I yelled at are the ones that told me they'd follow me to hell and back. Like, we get it now, Sergeant Mills, we'll follow you to hell and back. But they were just kept shooting. I'm like, you guys are team leaders. You've been here. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Just reality check.
It's another example. I mean, again, just you're talking about how you were in a leadership position. You're just backed off a little bit. You're paying attention to what's going on instead of you being on your gun and shooting. You're backed off. You're watching, and that's what you need to do in a leadership position. You got to back off a little bit. You got to observe what's happening. You got to make sense of what's happening, and then you got to make sure that people are doing the right things.
Yeah, I mean, if I shot my gun, I mean, that's great. I got a chance to shoot my M4 and do what I had to do, but if I wasn't controlling my 2 heavy weapon squad, like I had the 240, I was the king of the battlefield, if you will, with the heaviest firepower that I was in charge of. If they weren't doing the job the right way, then we were all in trouble.
Yeah. As I always say, God bless the machine gunners. Yeah. And it sounds like that deployment was, I mean, the firefights that you talk about in here were a lot. You're getting a lot of firefights.
Every other day, if not every day.
so this one here, you went out and did this raid, and then you get word after you do this raid that there's no aircraft to come and pick you up from the raid and go ahead and walk back.
Yeah.
That's good times.
Yeah, we went out. I told my guys, like, look, it's gonna be hellacious. Bring extra. We had each of us 2,000 rounds of 7.62.
Dang.
And then we also had, I always carried 2,000 rounds of 7.62, or I guess depending on the mission, it would change between 1,000 to 2,000. And then I'd carry 20 grenades, 10 on my armor and 10 in my bag, and then another 40 Mike Mikes. I had a 203.
Jesus.
And then 420 5.56 rounds, like not in my magazines, and I always had 12.
Bro, that's like freaking 200 pounds.
Yeah, but without ammunition, you're kind of screwed.
That's true. Good point.
So I always had 12 magazines on my person, and then I'd have 13th one in the chamber. So I had 13 full magazines on me. Not because 13 is like some special number, just because like my mag pouches
That's what they carry.
Yeah, my mag pouch was 2 deep, so I could have 3 on each side. Yeah, and we went out there and we ended up getting like 7 different firefights on the way back home. We had 4 detainees, and I got put next to the gun the one time, and you know how it's called pigtail and rat tail, they call it. When you put your 7.62 link in, you have one side come out, and then you switch back it in, and then the other side come out. So when you hook to a gun, it pulls out of your bag, and then if you have another bag next to you, you clip it together. Mm-hmm. Well, we shot through all my rounds. One of the things, we shot through all the 7.62 rounds. I was like, oh, this is so much like lighter. And I got to another spot, and one of my guys, Brandon Fessy, he was one of the guys that got hurt with me later on, but he was almost knocked, like passed out, so heavy. I said, oh, I take my bag. He goes, no, I got it. So I was like, give me your bag. Don't argue with me. And I was like, you need to make it back to the fob. And then our PA that came out with us, awesome guy, Ranger regiment guy, and he turned into be a doctor. He was dehydrating really bad on the walk back, going hallucinations and stuff. So we decided, me and 3 other guys, we're going to head and just like trot ahead and walk faster than everybody else, and like made it back to the fob first to get a MRAP to come get them. But yeah, and we actually, one of the guys we detained, we detained all these guys. They had 600 pounds homemade explosives, batteries, RPGs. And the thing was, a drone followed their RPG team back on a motorcycle to this compound, AK-47s, but we didn't get pictures with all their stuff. So we turned them over to the local national government, and they said, well, you didn't get pictures. These guys are free, so they let them go. Turns out the guy that we had detained, one of them, because we hided him, fingerprints were all over my bomb, and there was 13 bombs in a row, and they were all over the bombs the one that I hit. So the guy that we captured as the one that put the bomb in. Alpha Troop caught him. The ANA took care of him.
Damn.
So.
All right.
Sorry, did I bring it down to tone? My bad.
No.